coming at you, your advice was?
To run. To run.
To run. So I will try and remember that if that ever happens to me. Thank you.
I don't think we can run fast enough. Good morning, everyone. So we have a popular speaker today, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this meeting. I'll make an introduction to Joel Thomas. He has been teaching science since 2000. He taught for a period of time in a formal classroom setting, then moved outside to direct outdoor school programs on the Oregon coast. After nearly 10 years, he started Glen's Gizmos alongside his wife, Roxanna, and they have been blessed to travel and teach together. Recently, they started the Creation Calling Homeschool Hubs in Vancouver, Washington, and Newberg, Oregon. They now serve homeschoolers in the Pacific Northwest and beyond through classes, boat trips, scuba diving, videos, curriculum, and outdoor school programs. Let's give Joel a good DSA welcome.
All right. So we're going to start off. I'll give you a little overview of what we're going to do today so you kind of know what the roadmap looks like. But let's start off. I'm going to pray to start us off, and we'll start that way. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to present to these folks, and we ask that you bless our time together and help me speak words that are true and showcase your beautiful creation and you as a creator, more importantly. Amen. All right. So we're going to do a couple things. Right off the bat, we'll show you a little video. Then we're going to talk about how deep people can actually scuba dive and what that does on our body. We'll also, near the beginning of this, be talking about the evolutionary view of fish, the goo to you view, and how fish would fit into that view, worldview. And then we're going to contrast that to a Christian worldview. And we're going to spend the rest of the time illustrating through various means that are hands-on, some comical, some just fun and entertaining, some engaging, ways in which fish are rather different than us. And so kind of establishing that there are significant differences between fish and humans. And the differences are so extreme that it's very comical to me that anyone would think that our great, et cetera, grandparents were somehow fish, because there's no real similarity there. And so I'm excited to share that with you. To start with, we're going to share a little video. So you get to be some of the first to see this. So this is a video series we're working on. We have a pilot filmed now and mostly completed. This is a draft form of a show we're calling Wonders in the Deep, which we are pitching to a few different ministries like AIG and some others to see if any of them want to pick it up as a show on their platform. And it is a scuba diving show, a creation and scuba diving show. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. That would be a lot, among other things. But I'm just going to give you the little intro, because it'll give you, in a fun way, some background on my wife and I and what we are doing currently. Hang on here. Well, we did test this before. Hang on a second. We'll unplug and replug. Huh. Oh, it didn't like going sideways. It has trouble with sideways, but we got it now. Okay, here we go. And now the audio is no good. Are you getting audio back there? There we go. Hang on, I'll start you over. Here we go.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Roxy. Come aboard as we explore God's wonders in the deep.
Sorry about that. Believe it or not, we did test it. Okay. We'll try it from here and see if we can hold it. Well, that is just weird. Okay, hang on a second. We're going to try this a different way in just a little bit here. Let's try going into There we go. Okay, one more time. If it doesn't work this time, we'll go to plan B.
And I'm Roxy. Come aboard as we explore God's wonders in the deep.
If it picks up. No? That's okay. Okay, we'll drop that then, because that's not gonna do what we need for some reason. Okay. So basically what we're doing now is we are able to take young folks and help them get trained to scuba dive. And so we're working with teens and young adults now, getting them out exploring creation, and we're making a TV show about it at the same time. And then bringing in lots of educational components and other pieces of it, which has been a lot of fun to be able to work on. And as part of that, we're working on some curriculum and some other points as well for it. But one of the things that we address in there is we're going to be addressing differences between organisms and different species by their kinds, according to a biblical worldview. And so one of the things that we're going to do right now is just look at the evolution worldview of that, in case you haven't encountered that, one way of thinking about it. So evolution in clades. And so cladistics is organizing animals in an evolutionary way of thinking based on characteristics that they have that seem similar, so that they would be in the same family or grouping, right? But they don't even necessarily have to be in the same family, and then attempting to connect the lines to try to determine whose ancestor is whose, right? Assuming evolution from the goo to you evolution. And so cladistics is an approach to biological classification in which organisms are categorized in groups based on hypothesis of most recent common ancestry. The evidence for hypothesized relationships is typically shared derived characteristics that are not present in more distant groups and ancestors. So that's Wikipedia's definition of it, actually. And if you look at that, I bolded hypothesized relationships from derived characteristics, right? And so when you're looking at that way of thinking, here, I'll pull this up so you can see. All of the animals would have started from some distant common ancestor that we often can't even determine what that would have been from scientific evidence. But you look at groupings of organisms that seem similar today, and then you attempt to determine what might have looked like something to develop that in the past. And when I was doing research on this a while back, what kept coming up was scientists kept claiming it was good for predicting things. And I was like, well, what on earth does it predict, right? Well, what it predicts is what their common ancestors were from the past so that you can invent them in your head, right? Take fossils and then attempt to predict what that organism might have looked like and then put it in that place, which is a completely invented way of thinking. There's no good evidence there. So it's good for predicting something. Yeah, it's good for predicting your theory based on your own worldview that you already hold. We'll come back to that in just a second. So that leads us to this. This would be a theoretical evolutionary timeline. And that would show that some organisms existed, some of them supposedly evolved into other organisms, and then only a few, like amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, or ray fin fishes, still exist today, right? Out of all the animals that used to exist. That would be what this is attempting to show. So, I encountered one video online that I thought was particularly interesting that was sponsored by Monterey Bay Aquarium. And so you would think, well, Monterey Bay Aquarium, it has a lot of clout in the world of marine biology, right? It's one of the foremost organizations in that in the world. And so this was sponsored by them. And the person in the video, among other things, in laying out how fish evolved into people, are attempting to try to point that out in a very factual way, of course, which involved a lot of wild guesses, said, despite the foibles of cladistic approach, the cladistic approach has been a huge success. And then he went on to say, it helps scientists talk about the evolution of life on Earth in a way that makes sense. So unless you can draw the pictures, we all know it doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? And so they had to create diagrams like this and put lines between things in order for it to make sense and be believable to the general public, or convince themselves that this must have been how it was. And the reality is, we see these different clades or groupings of organisms, which, by the way, we're going to come back to how you see cats, dogs, bears, true seals, walruses. You see these different groupings of organisms that exist today, or that we're fairly confident about as groupings within the fossil record. And then, do you see all the lines towards the bottom there that are connecting everything? Well, those lines are invented. They're using what they see today to attempt to predict the past, right? To group things together. And what we're going, which this is not new information to most of you, but some of you it might be, so that's why we're starting off with it. So then that brings up the question, were fish my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, right? Because it's presented in such a factual way that anyone who reads that. By the way, I think that AI is going to push that more than ever now. And if you've ever started Googling things, AI is now part of what's answering your questions. And it's going to become really common, especially on the newest iPhone. It's AI-driven now, the iPhone 16s. And I don't know if any of you have ever used ChatGTP or whatever, GTP? Anyway, if you've ever used any of the AI chatbots and other things, to explore questions about creation science. They are incredibly biased against creation science, ridiculously so. In fact, until you ask a question very specifically in the right way, you can't even tell that creation science exists in the world with these chatbots. And then when you do ask it, they feel the need to put on a disclaimer about the information for these crazy creation people within that answer, which they don't do that with anything else, really. And so it's really weird that they were pre-programmed to already do that and have a bias. So the bias is being pre-programmed in. Anyway, I'm off topic a little bit, but that'll be interesting to see how people get information in the future. And people who want to present creation and the origins of the world according to the Bible, we're going to have a challenge on our hands because of it. So the person who was making that other video said, as lobed-finned fish split off, some of them, a group called tetrapods, used their fleshy limbs to haul themselves onto land, eventually giving rise to early mammals and eventually to our beaver friends. So he was talking about how the Catholic Church at one point in Canada apparently determined that you could eat beaver along with fish during Lent because they lived in the water. Interesting, but he was kind of bringing that up to try to tie different worldviews together, I think, to make the worldview that he had more believable to a Christian audience, probably. But tetrapod means a four-legged critter, right? 4 legs. And so these are tetrapod skeletons, and this is the tetrapod missing link, right? Tiktaalik, which, according to this picture, looked quite a lot like a land animal, such as a lizard or a crocodile or something on the front half, but more fishy on the back half. Kind of like a mermaid, which are obviously real creatures too, right? And so, but then again, these animals that were tetrapods, which today the only things that look sort of like that from the fossils are things like lungfish, which do flop around with their fins on shore, right? From pool to pool of mud, and then have to get back in the water right away. Or the coelacanths, which, if you don't know what these are a very large fish that was thought to be completely extinct. They're some of the only animals that still exist today from the fossil record that look similar to what they were seeing in calling tetrapods in the past, right? And so supposedly these are the missing links. Well, inconveniently, when the coelacanths were rediscovered as 6-foot-long, 200-pound fishes in 1938, inconveniently it was discovered that the joints and stuff don't work for them to walk on land, and they actually live deep in the ocean. So the assumptions about the fossils were completely wrong about them, at least. Now, other animals that were in that kind, which is how I would describe that, might they have flopped around on land like a lungfish? Maybe, but that doesn't mean that they're a missing link between things. That's a huge jump, right? Because God made all sorts of animals of different kinds that look all sorts of different ways, and they seem to always stay within their kind based on what we observe. The other thing is, it's interesting to me to look at a coelacanth, which is the living version, the living fossil of something like Tiktaalik, which you see down below. Look at how much artistic license they take, making a skeleton that looks rather similar look very much like a land living animal on the lower picture, right? That's a constructed image. You can't tell that from a skeleton or from a fossil all the way. But all of that comes from a worldview. So we're going to cover that next, and then we're going to get into some hands-on stuff together. So this comes from Answers in Genesis. Science means knowledge and refers to process by which we learn about the natural world. There are two different kinds of science, observational and historical science. Historical science deals with the past and is not directly testable or observable, so it must be interpreted according to our worldview. So the question then becomes making predictions, right? And your worldview and how that plays into it. So historical science is stuff from the past. It's so long ago, we can't hardly even tell what happened according to what we see around us other than the Bible, which seems pretty authoritative on it, right? But we can't tell otherwise. There's not a lot of good evidence out there. The Bible seems to be, to me, the very best evidence there is about what happened that long ago. But when you look at this, somebody who doesn't want to believe in that is going to come up with different answers for it. So they organized life in a way that makes sense at the top, and they connected all of these different kinds of organisms, right? Which they're calling clades, or groupings. And look at those kinds: cats, dogs, bears, true seals, etc. But there's also a Christian worldview way of looking at it. The one on the left is a Darwinian way of looking at it, where all things come from one common ancestor way back at the beginning. It didn't. Oh, I know it won't bring that one up, right? That's true. So on the left there, you can see the little Darwinian tree of evolution, where everything comes from one common ancestor way back. Baraminology, which is like a forest or an orchard of life, where we have kinds of organisms that then vary somewhat, but they always stay within their kinds, like dogs and cats are the classic examples that you see because we're so familiar with them. And then essentialism, or the lawn of life, right, where things were always the same from the very beginning and we didn't have any variation within a kind at all. And many creationists go with the idea of baraminology, where you have this orchard of life. But what I want to do is compare that right now to the secular worldview up here of an atheist or evolutionary worldview. So if somebody had taken these different kinds of organisms, right, cats, dogs, bears, true seals, walruses, etc., all these different kinds, and used the science that we can see, there'd be no way to draw connections between those groupings, right? None at all, because there's no real evidence for that. But because of the fact that they grouped them on a piece of paper and then looked at fossils and then interpreted through their worldview that they must be connected, they drew a line. There's not a lot more evidence than the line you see on the piece of paper in front of you that somebody drew for these connections between kinds of organisms. And if you were to eliminate for just a second and think about eliminating that whole line up the middle right there that connects all these, that moves up at a diagonal from lower left to right, what you would actually have would be this orchard of life model that you see down below, right? So everyone's using similar evidence that's observable, but then we totally reshape how we see things historically based on the worldview. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there before we move on. So, now let's talk about scuba diving, because a lot of scuba divers, they're evolutionists. They don't think about the world as being created by God. Many, many scuba divers are Christian. Many, many are not, just like anything else. And so when you're thinking of scuba diving or talking to other scuba divers, many are evolutionists, but it's really ironic to me because they cannot possibly survive underwater with all that extra equipment, right? So they clearly are not fish. And they should all realize this based on what they do whenever they go scuba diving. And it gets even more ironic than that, as we're going to cover in a little bit, but let's cover some of the things. So the people who've dove the deepest in the world, maybe a dozen people have been able to dive below 800 feet. Right? It's super dangerous. It requires a ton of money and preparation and teamwork and planning. All that stuff has to go into it, and you still could die from it because it's very dangerous. The deepest dive to record is about 1,090 feet in 2014. Many people have not survived attempts at diving very deep, and so it's possible, though I couldn't get a confirmation on this, that Guinness World Records has actually stopped collecting records on that because too many people would die from it. To trying to beat these records, at this moment at least. Going down was 12 minutes. It took 15 hours to come back to the surface and decompress for that 12-minute dive. So they drop super fast, then they take 15 hours to come back up. To be able to go that deep in the water, the person who did that used 5 tanks using Trimix, which is oxygen, nitrogen, and helium, with 5 tanks on their back. You can see it here. It looks not too complicated, right? And then years of planning and a tremendous team of people and an entire ladder going up to the surface with stuff staged on it and people staged on it for survival, for decompressing, coming back up in the long decompression. So it's incredibly complicated for humans to go into the water, and it requires a lot of technology, as we're going to see very shortly. So challenges facing deep divers if you go super deep like that, which I do not, because that's dangerous and I don't have that kind of training or experience. Oxygen toxicity. So on land, you can breathe pure oxygen. It's great for you. You feel really good while you're breathing it, right? But if you go under a little bit of pressure, a little bit of partial pressure, then oxygen becomes toxic quickly. And so if you're breathing air, you can go down to 187 feet on air as a breathing gas if it's compressed. You're going to be losing your mind because of nitrogen narcosis. You'll be acting drunk. You'll be really slow reflexes. You won't be thinking straight. You'll probably die anyway because you're on pure air and not trimix gases. But you could go down 187 feet with the oxygen toxicity. If you're on 32% oxygen, you can go down 111 feet. If you are on 36% oxygen, you can go down 95 feet before you're going to probably have a seizure and drown from it. At that point. So oxygen becomes deadly toxic at depth. If you are on pure oxygen 100%, you can only go down 13 feet before the oxygen will likely kill you with a seizure. That's very shallow, isn't it? And lots of people, unfortunately, probably had major health issues in order to figure this stuff out, so that we know today, right? A lot of Navy divers and stuff had to figure some of this stuff out too. Nitrogen narcosis, rapture of the deep. How many of you ever heard of that? If you've ever heard sea hunt, you've heard it by that name, right? Rapture of the deep. That is when nitrogen gets little bubbles or other things in between your, little bubbles in between your nerve cells is one way of thinking about it. And basically it slows down your synapses and your response for your nerves. So that starts happening at about 70 to 80 feet for most people. They usually don't recognize it until they're like 100 to 120 feet. And then they start to notice that. And you cannot think straight with it. So that's why they use helium, nitrogen, and oxygen. They mix in helium to replace the nitrogen so you don't get that, so you can think straight at depth. Helium tremors, for people who dive super deep. They get what are called helium tremors, and their central nervous system stops working correctly, and they cannot stop shaking, and it affects all of their organs if they're diving off of Trimix. So there's major problems for diving very deep, right? But what about shallow? That should be no problem, especially if we, have relatively recently been fish at some point. Well, facing all divers, things like pressure. Pressure is a big thing that faces divers. That means when you're going down, you have to equalize. I didn't put the picture of it in here, but you have an airspace within your inner ear and within your sinuses, right? And you have to be able to blow air back in. Have you been to the bottom of a swimming pool and your ears start hurting at about 8 feet down? Most people, it starts right about 6 feet. If If you've done that before, raise your hand. I bet you anyone who's ever been at the bottom of a pool knows that. So you have to plug your nose, you have to yawn, you have to push some air against the backside into your middle ear, in your inner ear area there, because there's too much pressure on your eardrum and it's hurting, right? Well, that's a problem. Now we can equalize as we go down by pinching our nose or various other ways and blowing against it, and it can adjust for the pressure. There's also decompression sickness, the bends, which some of you have probably heard of that too, where if you go down and dive deep, you get so much extra gas dissolved like nitrogen into your bloodstream and body and tissues that if you come back up too fast, it's like opening a can of soda and it tries to come out too quickly from being dissolved within your body. And when that happens, those little bubbles can create major life-threatening problems for you, along with being very painful. So you have to come up very slowly. That's why that guy who dove really deep, he went down for 12 minutes, he came up for 15 hours, right, on specialized gas mixtures, which would have shortened the length of that decompression anyway. So if you're talking about depth, every 33 feet is another atmosphere of pressure. So above us, all the way to outer space, we have 1 atmosphere of pressure. The air pushing down on us delivers that. Well, equal to that is 33 feet of salt water. So if you go down 33 feet in salt water, that's another atmosphere of pressure. 66 feet is another atmosphere. Now we're at 3 total atmospheres, counting the air above the water, right? If you go down to 99 feet, that's 4 atmospheres. So in a video, if I can get it to work in a little bit, that you're going to see, we go down to 100 feet on a dive. That is 4 atmospheres. So it's 3 more atmospheres beyond what you're experiencing right now of pressure on the body. Okay. And we are ready. You got that? Okay, good. Hypothermia. So we're going to take a little break and have a little game, okay, that some of you can play here. So hypothermia is something that really affects divers, especially in the Pacific Northwest, but it affects us because in the air, if the air is 70 degrees, you don't get very cold, right? That feels pretty good. But if you're in the water at 70 degrees, you won't make it super long before you're going to be shivering, because the water takes heat away from your body 20 to 25 times faster than the air that you're in right now, which is why air is a good insulator, but water is not as good. That's why wetsuits get you colder quicker, even if you can trap it against your body. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this, and I need one volunteer, I guess, to start us off. Now, let's pick 2 of you so you don't know what's coming before you get to do it. Who's feeling brave? 1 right there. Good, come on up here. You'll do great, don't worry. Okay, who else? I need 1 more. Could be a big kid at heart too if we need to. Right there, come on over. Come on up. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to let them attempt to get some washers out of this water right here. Come on over here, you 2. Put your finger in here. How does that feel? Warm. Warm? Feels pretty good. So that's warm water. It feels nice, doesn't it? So I'm going to go on ahead and have, just for fun, Ethan here, who's helping me out today, is going to take this here, and we'll see if we can get this to adjust for us. I'm going to have you come run around here and video for fun with them doing this, okay? Because it's more fun that way. And then people are online, maybe they can watch it that way too. Okay, I'm going to take a bunch of these washers, and I'm going to drop a whole lot of them into here. No looking now. Okay, so let's have one of you, why don't you come, you're going to have to look to do this. Come on over here to this side. We're going to have the 2 of you reach in here and pull out as many washers as you can in the time it takes me to count to, and us to count to what? Should we give them 20 seconds and see how they do? Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, close your eyes. Don't look in there. Close your eyes and look away, but you can use your hand. And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, they're doing pretty good, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, how'd you do? Count them up. Count up the ones in front of you there. Go for it. And then let us know how you did. Meanwhile, while they're doing that, we're going to get the other bucket ready for them. Okay, how'd you do? 21?
I think I got
23? You both did really, really good. Okay, come on over and set those inside of here. Pull those, take all those that you just collected, and go ahead and drop them into here if you would, please. Okay, now we're going to let your hand cool off a little bit. So before you can reach in and start this, you got to put your hand in it and wait 10 seconds. Does that sound good? Okay. Now this might be slightly harder than before, I'm thinking. We're just going to need 5 seconds. That's all we really need. Okay? And I think 5 seconds will be plenty adequate. Okay. Put your hand in. We'll count to 5. 1, 2. You can come to this side if it's easier. 3, 4, 5. Okay, get out as many as you can. Remember, you just got all those out on the warm water. So go on ahead and work on getting out as many coins as you can off the bottom. They're not up there. They're at the bottom. For anyone who's wondering, this might not feel the best. How are your hands doing? Are you finding lots of coins? Lots of those washers? Well, you got to go all the way down. Hang on. I'll help you out. I'll put a little bit of warm water. Does that sound good? Okay. We're probably about, 10 seconds now? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, count up your washers. How many did you get? 0? How about you? 0. Oh, nice job, you guys. You go have a seat. You did good. All right. Yeah, we can put it back up there for now. Actually, you can hold on to it. We'll be right back. Okay, so we know now that hypothermia, which steals the heat from your hands and body really fast, really affects how you operate, right? And if you're really cold, you're going to make it in our oceans up here 10 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe 45 before you're not going to be functioning at all, depending on how much of your body is underwater and your body composition. They did a great job, by the way, even though they didn't get any there. I thought they did great just keeping their hand in there that whole time, because that was cold. You guys who just did that, you go put your hand back in the warm water if you want to warm it up a second while I'm talking, if you decide you want to. But it really illustrates how our hands are not designed well to work in that cold of water. Well, guess what? Fish, they're cold-blooded, and their body is designed to work in all sorts of water temperatures, depending on where they're found in the world. Unlike us, who can't do that quite well enough. Okay, another one. I guess you're right. I do need that back for the next bit, don't I? There we go. We'll pull that back up. Okay, another challenge facing divers. So we've got temperature and hypothermia. And we're not by any means giving you an exhaustive list. This is a tiny list of these things that actually make it challenging to be underwater for any period of time. Light is another thing that affects divers. So if you're scuba diving, often, especially up here, you have to take flashlights with you to be able to see what you're doing, especially if you're going down deeper than about 40 or 45 feet in the Pacific Northwest. This is partially due to the fact that light cannot penetrate the water super far. So electromagnetic radiation, which it's a miracle it can get to Earth at all, by the way, through outer space it can travel, but also it can travel through a medium here, which is the clear air that we're breathing and we need to survive, allows the light to transfer through. That's a miracle too. Comes in these different wavelengths, right, that produce the different colors. Most of you are familiar with that. But let's go on ahead and talk about the energy and the wavelengths of these. So as you move over from bright colors, like what you see in that top diagram on the left with the red, and you go over to the blues, you end up with stuff that is smaller wavelengths and higher energy, so it can penetrate a little farther into the water. Some types of electromagnetic radiation, like Bluetooth, for example, or wireless, can't really go into water at all. Maybe they make it 3 feet for Bluetooth connections. And scuba divers use them, like my wrist computer connects to back here on my tank with a Bluetooth connection. But that's because my wrist is attached to my body. If it went farther than that away, it wouldn't connect anymore. But we're going to do a little experiment here just to show energy it takes to produce these. So, and these wavelengths are not going to be true to scale. This is illustrative, okay, in this particular case. For one, there's no way I'm going to get anyone to make wavelengths that are that wavelength with this spring. Okay, I need 2 other volunteers to come on up. Maybe we'll have 2 more kids. Who's feeling brave? Springs look fun, huh? Come on up. Okay, who else? Right over, does he want to do it? You can if you want to. Okay, come on up. No? Okay, who else? Making sure I don't miss anyone in the corners. Okay, you can come on up. That'll be great. Okay, so this is a spring that if you allow it to get tangled, it's not the end of the world, but it will be like the worst slinky mess of our lives. Does that make sense? So we have to not let go of it. Okay, what they're going to do here is they're going to take this spring and stretch it out between them. And first off, I want you to, well, let's see, it's already done. There we go. Okay, stretch that thing out. Let me get out of the way just a little bit, though, so I don't get whacked. Okay, I want you just to make one big wave in the middle. So just up and down. That's 2. You see, you've already done too much there. Just up and down together. Just see if you can do it. Oh, yeah, there you go. See, you were being overachievers right off the bat. So that's one big wavelength, right? That'd be like light that's more in the brighter color area up there. Now make 2. See if you can get two wavelengths out of that. This is a little bit higher energy. That's still not quite 2, but now, there we go. That's almost 2. Almost 3 right there. Do you see that? Okay, so we're picking up 2 or 3 there. Go ahead and do a little bigger. Move your arms a little more when you do it. Oh, there you go. So that's like 2 or 3. There's 3. Do you see 3? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I want you to try to make 4. We're moving towards higher energy waves now. Okay, that's probably 4. There you go. Good job. Okay, do 5. That should be easy. 5, I said. That's still 4, I think. Oh, there you go. 5. 5. That's really good. Okay, now do 6. 6. I want to see 6. That should be no problem. That's like moving over towards the blues now, finally. So that's going to be able to penetrate a long way into the water. I don't know if that's 6, but you guys did great at 5. Okay, are you getting tired? A little bit? So after we're done, if you want to come up and try this, you're welcome to. Good work? Okay, let's bring it back together before we have a horrible slinky mess. These things take hours to untangle if they aren't wound up well. Okay, so we're going to leave that here. Later on, after the presentation, if you feel like you want to get a buddy and come up and do this, you can do that. Just be careful not to let go of it or whack anyone when you're doing this, right? So that'll be good. So that's energy that's higher energy. If you look at the bottom of this picture, do you see down here where it says just below the surface and then a depth of 99 feet? That's in clear tropical water. Over here, it'd be even darker than that because light has an even harder time getting through the algae layers and stuff. But look at the color change between those marker caps. If you look on the left, on the bottom one, do you see how all the bright colors are muted? It's because all of those colors from the top left have gone away. And as you go down, it gets darker and darker as well as you continue to lose energy in the form of light. Now, amazingly, God made fish and animals that can survive even without light way down deep in the ocean, but we certainly would not survive there. So, that's another challenge that faces divers. Oop, that's the same one. There we go. Okay, that brings me to this. Here's a little bit of humor for you. Well, actually, let's bring this up in just a moment. We'll come back to that. Okay. Well, no, we'll bring it up now. It'll be good. Okay, so this right here is what divers do a buddy check. So when you get all suited up, like a couple of you are about to do up here with us for fun, and you get ready to do a buddy check, this is one of the things that divers say to remember to do their buddy check and what the different things are. They say, because we really aren't fish. That's one of the most common pneumatic things for memory that divers use. Okay? They do it every time they get in the water. They use something like that if they're doing a good job. It could be Bruce Willis records awful films. I think I've heard that one somewhere. It could be burgers with relish and fries. I've heard that one before. But this one's my favorite, and this is the one I hear the most among divers. And all divers recognize, because we really aren't fish, we should not get in the water without all this equipment and safety, right? But yet, they don't recognize that we really aren't fish. Okay, that stands for buoyancy, weights, releases, air, and final check for their buddy check at the end. because we really aren't fish. And it's absolutely funny to me and sad that every diver can say that a lot of the time. A lot of them use that one when they go into the water, but they still don't realize that we've never been fish, right? We really aren't. Okay, so this, I'm assuming, will not play the way it is. I'm going to get it to work in just a second by changing something I'm doing. But to start with, we're going to have a couple of you suit up for us, okay? So let's talk about what it takes to be a scuba diver, and we brought some scuba diving gear. So I need 2 more people who haven't done anything with me yet, who feel like they're feeling brave to get dressed up in scuba gear. Come on over here and sit on the stairs right here. Okay? Someone else? Neither one of you have done anything yet? Okay, come on up and sit right here in the orange sweatshirt. Come on up and sit on the stage right over here. Okay, Ethan's going to help us out with this one. This will take us a few minutes to get this sorted out and working for you. I'm going to see if I can put a camera here. Actually, hold on. You wanted to help too, right? Come on up. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You can't go to that side because my cord unfortunately doesn't reach that far, but you're just going to sit here and video this process, and we'll see how you do with the videoing. Does that sound like fun? For everyone in the audience to be able to see well what we're doing. There you go. Okay, there we are. So we've got our scuba diver who's ready, right, to go diving. And some of the things that we just talked about, they're going to have to be thinking about. So one of the things is insulation. They need an exposure suit. So this is a dry suit that a scuba diver would wear. It doesn't have the seals in it. Right here would have neck seals and wrist seals, partially because that would just be a lot of trouble right now since we aren't actually getting in the water, and they rip easy. So we don't have the seals in it, but otherwise it's all here. This is one that we just used for diving the other day with some folks. So you ready to try on a dry suit? Okay, normally a scuba diver is going to get into the water. You're going to have to sit down in there or stand here and put your legs in there and climb into it like a gigantic set of pajamas. Oh, actually, you should take your shoes off first. Sorry about that. I should have told you that. So a dry suit like this keeps the water out, and then you wear insulating layers underneath that keep you warm, right? The insulating layers, sometimes they're very thick. Depends on how cold the water you're going into is and how much insulation you want. And they get compressed as you go up and down in the water. So not only do you have the problem of keeping warm, but the deeper you go, the more compression happens on those layers and the less that they insulate you and the more you sink quickly, right? So you got to add air back into it as well. Okay, put your feet all the way down in there. Oh, you're going to be great in this, I can already tell. Okay, it definitely fits you just about right, I'd say, wouldn't you? Oh, there we go. We've almost got your foot into the actual sock here. Okay, that's one. Now we got to do the other one. You can sit down for this if you want to. It might be easier and a whole lot safer. Okay, so here goes the other one. There we go. Okay, now you're going to have to stand up here on the floor. You ready to waddle down there and stand up? Because now you're going to have to put this up over your head and your arms in the sleeves. There. Now your arms go out under the sleeves. Perfect. Okay. Very good. Other one. Okay, so now you've solved the problem of staying warm, and you've got a little bit of buoyancy control once you're trained to use this correctly. We aren't using an undergarment because if we did, they would die of heat exhaustion in here without going into the water. So, you're ready, right? But you need some other things to stay alive because you really aren't a fish. So, we probably better put together, let's see, let's go in and assemble a BCD here, Ethan, onto a tank and regs. So, this right here is a buoyancy compensating device. It's a vest that fills up with air, so you can control your buoyancy so you don't drop too low or too high in the water. So we're going to put that on you. But before we do that, we're going to attach a scuba tank. This shouldn't be any problem at all, right? This thing probably doesn't weigh very much compared to you. You want to try to lift that just to see? Are you curious? It's a little bit heavy. Go figure. Okay, so we're going to attach this right here not to worry, this will only be going on your back. We're going to attach this right here onto this tank. And this is just the basic scuba diving gear, right? This is the stuff you need to have to stay alive. Nothing fancy for going real deep or anything. And then on top of that, so we're getting our breathing here because we really aren't fish, which means you can't breathe under the water you don't have gills, right? Last time I checked, you didn't at least. And so we're going to go ahead and attach that. And then this is a set of regulators that you breathe through that regulate the pressure that you're breathing. So we're going to go ahead and attach that. It's not getting complicated, right? Good. If you ever want to go diving, you really should go diving. I'm making a fun time of it here with how complicated it is. It's well worth doing. But it definitely requires a lot of gear. So we're going to turn that on and we'll get some pressure there. Okay, good. Now, we wouldn't want you to think this would be too easy. So we're going to have to add some weights to this because this is going to make you float really good, right? And you already float probably a little bit. So we probably better add some lead weights into that gear. So can you lift that and see how heavy that really is? Yeah, that's about how heavy it is. But that's about an average amount of weight a scuba diver would probably have to take. You'd have to take a little less because you're smaller, but so maybe we'll leave out the extra trim weights. There's one. So this right here, just these two alone, this is 20 pounds of lead on top of all this other stuff. Luckily, because your ancient ancestors were fish, you don't have to have a lot of gear to survive under the water. Which I'm kidding in, of course. Okay, so now you're almost ready with that. Let's see. Oh, well, shoes. You better put your shoes on. Yep, that ought to fit. Okay, you can sit back down again right here because we're going to have to put shoes. I don't know how we're ever going to get these onto your feet. They barely fit on. Wait, what's all this extra sock doing in here? Well, so far it's going pretty well. Is your foot even in there? Hold on, I think that's the heel. Oh, I might have put that on the wrong side, but that really doesn't matter too much, I guess. Okay, here's the other one. You're doing great, by the way. You're almost ready to get in the water. Only another 2 hours of preparation. Okay, there you go. Are you still able to stand up safely? Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to strap this onto your back right here. So we got your shoes on now. Okay, you can sit down right there on that. We're going to get ready to strap you in. That's not going to work. You are too low. Hang on a second. We're going to have you sit kind of sideways down there. Okay, put one arm through here, slide on over, put the other arm over here. Oh, you're doing great. Okay, this shouldn't be heavy at all, right? Okay, do you want to try to stand up with it just the way it is? Here, I'll help you with the back end. Oh! Okay, I'm going to slowly let off and see if you can stand with it. You ready? Oh! Okay, you can sit back down. You're doing a good job. Just stay just like that, okay? So, of course, we aren't really quite done yet because you're going to need some fins for your feet since we don't have webbed toes. So we're going to put those on. There, that should stay on very securely on those feet. Oh, where are you going? Hang on here. There you go. Whew, nice job. Almost lost you on that one. Okay, and then this side. Boy, that one does not want to go. There, okay, now you've got your webbing on your feet. Of course, your head's going to get cold. So we're going to need something, hang on just a second, over your head. Here, how you doing now? Is that feeling pretty good? Good. Okay. Oh, and you need to know how much air you actually have in that tank, otherwise you might run out of air. This will also help you track and control your gases that are dissolved in your body. So this is your computer for your diving right here. There you go. How's it going over there, Ethan? That was a rough go, yeah. Okay, and then you wouldn't want your hands to get cold, right? Okay, so we're going to have you put these on. There you go, you're doing great. You know, I'm not sure your fingers are going to ever get to the end of that. Okay, there you go. And this side over here, we'll just see if we can at least get them to sort of stay on. How does that sound? Oh, actually, that went pretty good. Nice job. Okay, and then you can't really see underwater without something else over your eyes very well, so we're going to have to put these goggles on you. This mask, rather. Goggles are what you wear when you go swimming. Masks are what you wear when you go diving. Okay, you're doing pretty good there. How's that feel? Less good? You're doing great. Okay. Oh, in order to see down there, you're going to need a flashlight. So we're just going to put this over your wrist here. Okay. And then, safety first. Hold that in your hand. There you go. You're doing good. And, you know, it's hard to communicate down there, so you're going to have to clip this onto you. Because you can't really talk underwater. And then on top of that, whatever you might catch to eat or get, you might want to hold that so you have a bag. Does that sound good? And then you got to catch your food. So in order to eat. So we're just, hang on, you can exchange this one. Let go of that one and I'll give you this one. There, we'll just put this right back here for safety. Okay, we're ready over here, Ethan. How you doing over there? About ready? Okay, let's have you go on ahead and stand up and see how you're doing now. I'll hold the tank in the back so you won't fall over. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Hoo-ah! Pretty good, I'd say. What do you think? Looking sharp. All right, have a seat. Are you ready to get back out of it? I thought so. Okay, we'll get this arm first. Right there. Nice. And then this arm. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to put this up here. Okay, and then the hood. Coming off. Woo, are you warm? I thought you might be in there. Okay, I don't think there's any real reason to even take the fins off. I think you're going to step right out of them just fine. So as you can see, scuba diving takes a fair bit of equipment to be able to function, doesn't it? Okay, and out, and you can slide your feet back out and emerge from your chrysalis a new man. Maybe. Here you go, I'll hold the bottom in for you. There. There's one. Let's get that one. There's two. Okay. Slide them out. Nice job. Let's give them a round of applause. You did great. You didn't know what you were getting into, did you? Okay, so as you can see, how to go over here. All right. Nice work. Okay, thank you. Awesome. As you can see, it can be pretty complicated for a human to be able to survive under the water. And if we go in with that gear, you'd be underwater about an hour before you'd have to come back up. And so, knowing that is just a fun and humorous way to illustrate the fact that we really aren't fish, right? It takes all that stuff for us to survive 1 hour underwater versus a fish, which God designed to just live there naturally its whole life. And it shows that we're pretty different than them in a lot of ways. We're going to come back after a little break, and we're going to look at that even closer. And we're going to actually design some fish out of helium balloons when you come back after the break too, which will be good. So we talked about what it takes for a human to get underwater, and we're going to look at what it took for God to design a fish to be underwater a little bit.
Yes?
I thought I would take you on a tour of the Discovery Center. If we have time, hey, you guys better hurry. Okay, well, let's rush it. This is gorgeous. The Grand King. T-Rex. Whoa! My favorite exhibit is coming up right here.
You're about to experience an adventure in biblical history at the Creation Museum. You might have some questions about your upcoming visit to the Creation Museum, so here's an overview of what you need.
Okay, because I got about twice as much stuff planned as time I have to do it in, so we'll be fine. But if it does work, it'll be fun for you to see. So we had some of our teenage divers who are working with us. They're 16, 17, 18-year-old people. I grabbed 2 of them and took them on a dive. We dove down to 100 feet and did some quick experiments that you might find a little bit interesting. And so hopefully this will work for you, and I'll kind of narrate along the way as we go. There won't be sound right off the bat for some of it, at least. So what we did is we took a piece of styrofoam down with us so you can see that what the pressure does to styrofoam. Someone in here was just describing what happens if you put a styrofoam cup down at depth and it shrinks down into a little shot glass size thing from a big styrofoam cup. But this thing is 6 inches by 6 inches by almost an inch, if you look at how big this is above water. And then we're going to switch over, and one of the things we did is we filled a bottle so you know what's coming up with water to show you how gases will compress. According to Boyle's law, they'll compress down there under pressure, and liquids won't nearly as much. And so that one bottle is going to be full of water. Underwater, it will look as if it's got nothing in it, but it won't be crushed. And then we put in a bottle that just had air in it as well. And then we took Fido with us, down with us. And Fido didn't fare as well as everything else, as you're going to see. So remember that as we go down in the water, those things that have air in them, like that balloon or the pop bottle that's there, none of those things are going to actually lose any gas out of them. Nothing changed with them that way. They just got compressed when they were down there, and then when they come back up, they re-expand again. And so we won't have you watch the whole way in slow motion. We're going to run it in high speed here. One of the things that did happen, if you watch that blue bag that's trying to float, do you see that little colored thing? We took, what's the main character from that Cars movie, the little race car guy? Lightning McQueen. We took him down, stuck along with some marker caps, but Lightning McQueen fell out right off the bat and we lost him. So miraculously, because of the video, we knew right where we lost him. So we went back and got him from some neighbors who picked him up off the beach and threw him in their trash can the next day. of all places. So as we go down, I'm intentionally filming this as we begin to descend. Right now, you're already past a depth that you can breathe pure oxygen at if you were breathing actual oxygen, straight oxygen. We're already down around 20 feet or so right here. We didn't use lights to begin with because we wanted you to see the loss of light as you go down. The green tint is because of algae in the upper layers filtering the sunlight. Right here, we're now at 45 feet and dropping down. As we go down, the dry suits we wear get compressed. Our lungs would be compressed, except for we can breathe in every time, which then that pressure pushes our lungs back out, right? Because it's adjusted to the pressure we're at. After this, we drop off the edge of a pretty steep hillside. And now we start using flashlights because we can't really see what's going on. So we have to switch over to lights. We're now at 79 feet and dropping. 79 feet. So once we hit 100 feet, that is 4 atmospheres of pressure, right? Every 33 feet is an extra atmosphere, so kind of the atmosphere above. There's 2 ships that wrecked down here. Just passing them at 95, 96, 97, and then we stopped right at 100 because that was our target for this little experiment for you. As you can see, it's very dark. We struggled with the exposure on our flashlights. It's also very difficult to do things underwater, and at that depth, you're experiencing the beginning of nitrogen narcosis, which means for most people, their thinking is not quite as fast as it should be, and your perception is narrowing. You aren't seeing stuff around you quite as well. Like you're just focusing on one task at a time, which your brain does in a survival mode, right? And so where maybe some of us are beginning to experience the beginning of that, not in a way that we would note it necessarily, but it's going to make everything more difficult moving forward here and much slower. So right here is a ping pong ball. At depth, as soon as you squish them, you're going to see one later that you'll be able to see up closer. Ping pong balls, it's fun because they survive with that round sphere until you hit 100 feet, and then they're ready to implode. That is the bottle we filled up top with water. As you can see, it's still intact, right? And these are all things that are difficult for the human body. Miraculously, we can go down there, but you have to have equipment and some training to do it. It's difficult for the body to be able to do because we aren't fish. And then he's looking right now for another bottle to show us, the one that was full of air at the top. Remember, we didn't let any air out of this bottle. We just went down with it, and it's all been compressed inside the bottle. So this is the other bottle, which has now been compressed significantly at depth. You can imagine what Fido's looking like in that bag at this point. And in a second here, well, I think the next thing maybe we're going to pull out is going to be the piece of styrofoam. I didn't fast forward this part partially because I want you to see the struggle we have with finding things and getting things out. It's difficult when you're down there. So this is the piece of styrofoam we're going to remeasure. We had our lights a little bright because it's so dark that we're overexposed, but that is 4 inches. So we lost 2 inches on the styrofoam across on both directions. And coming across the middle, we're now under 1/2 inch when we go to measure it. So, and when it comes back up, it expands most of the way back. It just looks a little funky around the edges because of being squashed. This is Fido, or what's left of him. Didn't do super good. At the end, Fido reinflated to one balloon that with no twists in it again, right? Because it lost all of its twisting once we got back up. I don't think I put that in here, but that's part of it. And then here's a ping pong ball. You barely touch them and they implode at that depth. And you can't hear it there. I need to get the audio and put it with it. This is some really rough footage that we're going to use in an episode later for some stuff. But I wanted you to be able to see it just for fun, so you kind of get a feel of what it's like underwater at 100 feet down. Obviously, communication and other things are challenging down there, partially because it's dark, but you can't talk, and you can write on a slate, but that's about what you got down there, unless you have really nice equipment with full face masks. Oh, lost one. Can't remember if there is... We spent a good long while looking for Lightning McQueen. only to realize that he flew the coop right off the bat with the other colored things. So I don't remember if there's I think there's one more ping pong ball for you to see, and then we start back. So at this depth, our breathing gas, we were carrying steel 120s and steel 100s, so that's 100 and 120 cubic foot of breathing gas. At this depth for us, which we breathe about average for a person, we could be down there maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes total, with underwater time of about 45 or 50 minutes, but we can't do that because of the nitrogen load that loads up in our body, right? So we can only spend about 12 minutes down there before we have to return from that kind of depth, unless we're breathing gas mixtures. So this is coming back up. All that stuff that we passed before that didn't have any color, we're using lights now as we come up. And so suddenly, you're going to start noticing that stuff has color again, because the lights, as soon as the lights hit it, I want you to watch for that. There those guys are. And see where the lights are hitting and the color that suddenly shows up. So there's no color, right? Just green and grays mostly. And then once we hit it with lights, I went slow for this part so you can see it. Scuba diving for us has presented some really fantastic opportunities for us to build into with really intensive Christian character development programs, young people. And so that's been really good. Build into them by doing extensive training on things regarding creation and creation science, as well as provided some great opportunities to reach some people who don't know Jesus as well. So it's been really a good opportunity for us. And part of the reason it's such a great tool, though it's very intensive at times, is because when you're under the water scuba diving, your whole body is involved. Like it's not just the physical part of your body, there's also a tremendous emotional part of your body that has to be engaged in the activity, and I believe a spiritual side of you as well that has to be involved, because you're very aware of everything that's happening within and around you, right? When you're scuba diving, you have to be. So it provides very unique opportunities to share with people. All right, cool. So up next, what we're going to do is we're going to make some fishes. How does that sound? And the way that that's going to work is it's going to be happening partially in the lobby, to start with at least, because we learned a long time ago whenever we do this activity, we irritate the facility we're at. Because the fishes, if let loose too early, made out of these balloons, go up there. And when they're up there floating around in the middle of the night, they set off all of the security alarms every time the AC units or heat units and HVAC turns on and off. So these are going to be happening outside in the lobby area in just a second, so we have the ability to retrieve and or explode them at the roof if we need to pop them with a needle or something. So, but what's going to happen is if you choose to do this, we have a lot of balloons. You could choose to do it if you want to. I figure the kids will want to do it at least. You adults that are kids at heart, you should get out there and do some of it too if you feel like it. But here's the challenge. If you are a particularly younger kid, your challenge is to get a balloon like this that wants to go to the ceiling, right, like floating up in the water column. And your challenge is to decorate it like a fish. Jellyfish aren't fish, but I'd let you do that if you're little, right? Or whatever sort of fish you decide, and make it so it floats neutral. So you can clip it off the table, where it's going to be taped to, and it'll float around neutral in the water column, right, in the air rather in this case. So it's not going up and it's not going down, and you can move it just by blowing on it or moving your hand near it, right? So you can control it. That's your challenge. It's going to be tough. If you're an older kid or a kid at heart person in here, then you have to get it neutrally buoyant and you have to make it turn so the face is over here. And it can't be rolling back and forth. It's got to sit trim in the water, okay? These are all challenges that scuba divers have to artificially recreate, since we aren't fish, but fish can do it like that because God gave them all these abilities, right? Because they're so unique. So you have to get yours to be able to float around this way. It's going to be taped here on the table to start with. As soon as you get your balloon, get some tape, tape it under the table real good so it doesn't get loose while you're working on it, right? At the height of the person who's going to be working on it. Some of you parents and adults or older kids will be counting on you to help out with some of the younger kids, and we'll be moving this table out there to join another table. The fish creation, until it is neutral, needs to stay kind of over near the doors where the tables are, because that's where the ceiling's low. right? So we can deal with them if they get loose, if we have any runaway flying fish. Okay, so that's going to be out there. We have different items you can use. There's tape, there's paper, but there's not scissors because we forgot those. So you're going to have to get creative in how you get your fins and stuff if you want to use paper. There are pom-poms. Those could work for eyes, maybe to help tilt if you need to try to get the weighting right, for it to sit trim. You'll find soon that it's easy to put too much weight on a balloon, so you're going to have to think through your design of your fish. I want your fish to have a tail fin, pectoral fins up here, and a dorsal fin, but it doesn't have to be big. You got that? It's going to be a challenge to figure out how to make all those fins sized right so that it doesn't flip over upside down and end up like a floating dead fish. Okay, additionally, it would be a good idea for your fish to have a mouth and eyes, right, in this particular case. I say that because not all fish necessarily have eyes. There's some that don't, who live very deep in the ocean or in caves. But the eyes could be weighting on the front that help you tilt the front down, okay? Once you get all done with your fish, your balloon, if you do it well, will be sitting like this with a little bit of slack here in the ribbon. When it's got slack in the ribbon, you know you're about neutral. Start clipping the ribbon down by the table, and then slowly remove ribbon a little bit at a time until your fish is neutral. There's some hints for you, okay? If you cut off too much ribbon, don't let your fish get away. You're going to have to add something back, right? You think you're up for the challenge, everybody? We got a lot of balloons. We can fill some more balloons. I think we have enough for every kid to do their own, and for adults who, depending on how many want to do it, to do their own or to work in pairs. Additionally, since we got the video in here working, I can show you the beginning of that trailer if you want to see it. Or it's not really a trailer, it's just the beginning of the pilot that we did. We haven't got so far as to make a trailer yet, but someday. But I can show you that too if you'd like to see that. Let me look at the time though, so we can plan that out well. Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's get some fish created first, and then in the last 10 minutes, right before, I think we were going for what, about 11:20? Right about 11:10-ish, so in about 10:50, maybe 11:15. If you want to see it, we'll rerun the front of that in here because I think I got it working now. And if you want to see the beginning of that show that we created, which is, it's fun to watch. So, without further ado, and I might run, because we got enough of us in here, some of us might actually want to just see that, I'm thinking. So we might run that show twice in a row, that beginning of it. Does that make sense? So if you're a young person or a person who wants to make a fish, head out those doors. If you want to watch the little bit, the first few minutes of the show right now, hang out in here and we can show it, but we're going to re-show it in 10 or 15 minutes. So if you want to make a fish, you should go do that first. We'll catch you after the fish making with the show again. Does that sound good? All right. And then I don't know if there is, well, I can carry this. That'll give me a second. I'll start the show, then I'll go out there and get them started on the fish. How does that sound? And you can watch a few minutes of it. Joel.
And I'm Roxy. Come aboard as we explore God's wonders in the deep.
The fiery blaze still persisting on the salmon-laden Alaska Reaper. With 6 vessels surrounding her and 3 helicopters in the sky, it appears that the Alaska Reaper is going to sink.
For as long as I can remember, I have wanted to scuba dive. As a boy, my extended family would gather at a beach house on the Oregon coast. Those days of family, cold waves, sand, and... Hold up, how'd that get in there? Mom! Mom! Did you put that in there? Sorry, folks, let's try that again. For as long as I can remember, I have wanted to scuba dive. As a boy, my extended family would gather at a beach house on the Oregon coast. Those days of family, cold waves, sand, and tide pools are still among my fondest memories. I loved it because of the many crazy, quirky creatures that live in our oceans, reflecting God's creativity. All that was created exists to point to and glorify God. I came to realize that God's creativity feeds my God-given curiosity. I understand now that becoming a diver requires a couple of things: either a lot of money or a scuba diving mentor willing to take new divers under their wing. I had neither.
Today we are preparing to dive the wreck of the Alaska Reaper, and we have a lot to do.
That's good. Take it from there. Meet our boat, the Sand Dollar. This boat is a rib boat. That means it is a rigid inflatable boat. It has a rigid hull underneath and inflatable sides composed of 5 chambers.
Each time we dive, it takes a day or 2 of preparation. We must labor in this world. Death, decay, rot, and rust are all constants in our lives. When it comes to scuba diving, we watch as our gear is consumed. Everything metal rusts, extra fast in saltwater.
Since we read our Bible, that really doesn't come as a shock. In the 3rd chapter of Genesis, we learn that human sin brought corruption to God's perfect world, and as a result, things of this world do not last forever. Jesus says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
That means we should be putting our priorities in line during our time here on Earth, treasuring the eternal things like relationships, especially our relationship with Jesus.
That's for sure. The human soul is eternal, but things of this earth are imperfect and passing away. Jesus says, only He can save us, and I choose to believe in Him.
We're heading on an adventure about 4 hours north, and everyone is excited. But before we can leave, we must finish packing.
Since 2012, we have been blessed to teach marine biology classes for homeschooling families. In the past couple of years, God has allowed us to help train several of our teen and young adult students to dive. Since then, we have been acting as mentors for these young people, encouraging and equipping them to explore the world under the waves, bringing glory to God. We are taking 2 new divers with only a handful of dives under their weight belts on this adventure.
We also have to pack the right amount of lead weight to sink our exposure suits.
I dive 20 to 24.
This would make it 30.
We can bring that just in case.
Finally,
Who's helping me out on stage, which is kind of fun because they both scuba dive too with us. So that's the video we're working on, if you're curious about it. Hopefully it'll go up somewhere pretty soon. Anyway, I wanted to show that as an intro so you'd understand kind of what we're working on recently, but so that'll be good.
What's the market for that? How will you distribute it?
We're attempting initially to get AIG to pick it up or somebody else like that for Answers in Genesis through answers.tv. They have a streaming platform with quite a bit of content on it now. If they decide not to pick it up in the end, then we will explore other options or attempt to self-publish it if we can find the funding for it. So we're trying to make, so one of the things that we realized is missing is really good marine biology video content with a Christian background in it, from a Christian source or worldview. And so we're attempting to create that along with the curriculum series. The ones that we've encountered before, like Apologia, has some great curriculum for marine biology, but there isn't anyone doing exactly something quite like this in the video world. And so we're attempting to help fill a hole there that we see, a need that we see within the creation movement. And hopefully it will benefit a lot of people and impact people. Yeah? All right,